All right. Good morning or afternoon, eighth grade reader leaders. So, as we jump into our new novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, this novel is extensive, as I mentioned, but I want to make sure that we are focusing on the right parts. So, there are going to be some parts that we read together. I read to you and with you. And then some parts you, as rising seniors, are going to be responsible for reading on your own with the help of my voice for the earlier chapters and getting your work done. So you should have your book To Kill a Mockingbird. For the video recording, we're actually going to open up to page 10. So make sure you're on page 10 for me. And if you have a different book with a different page number, just raise your hand and I will direct you. We're actually going to go ahead and start at the paragraph that starts with not bug. Jesus help me. So when you are there, you can go ahead and rock and roll. Now we're going to actually read from 10 to 12. This is what you are going to be focused on as we're reading. So you're looking for character details for Mr. and Mrs. Radley and setting details for the Radley place. So be looking out for those things as you hear my voice. All right, let's go ahead and get started. But by the end of August, our repertoire was vapid from countless reproductions, and it was then that Dill gave us the idea of making Boo Radley come out. The Radley place fascinated Dill. In spite of our warnings and explanations, it drew him as the moon draws water, but drew him no nearer than the light pole on the corner, a safe distance from the Radley gate. There he would stand, his arm around the fat pole, staring and wondering. Just like some of y'all parents tell y'all to stay put and y'all so nosy, this is what's going on with them. The Radley place jutted into a sharp curve beyond our house. Walking south, one faced its porch, the sidewalk turned and ran beside the lot. The house was low, was once white with a deep front porch and green shutters, but had long ago darkened to the color of the slate gray yard around it. Rain-rotted shingles drooped over the eaves of the veranda. Oak trees kept the sun away. The remains of a picket drunkenly guarded the front yard, a swept yard that was never swept, where Johnson grass and rabbit tobacco grew in abundance. Inside the house lived a malevolent phantom. People said he existed, but Jim and I had never seen him. Wonder who they're talking about. People said he went out at night when the moon was down and peeped in windows. When people's azaleas, one of our vocab words, froze in a cold snap, it was because he had breathed on them. Any stealthy small crimes committed in Maycomb were his work. Once the town was terrorized by a series of morbid nocturnal events. People's chickens and household pets were found mutilated. Oh, Jesus, help me. Do you hear that, Walter? Oh, my goodness. Although the culprit was Crazy Addie, who eventually drowned himself in Barker's Eddy, people still looked at the Radley place, unwilling, page 11, to discard their initial suspicions. A Negro would not pass the Radley place at night. He would cut across to the sidewalk opposite and whistle as he walked. The Maycomb School grounds adjoined the back of the Radley lot. From the Radley chicken yard, tall pecan trees shook their fruit into the schoolyard, but the nuts lay untouched by the children. Radley pecans would kill you. A baseball hit into the Radley yard and was a lost ball and no questions asked. So right now you should have some setting details for the Radley place. Just make note of it. The misery of that house began many years before Jim and I were born. The Radleys, welcome anywhere in town, kept to themselves, a predilection unforgivable in Maycomb. They did not go to church, Maycomb's principal recreation, but worshiped at home. Mrs. Radley seldom, if ever, crossed the street for a mid-morning coffee break with her neighbors, and certainly never joined a missionary circle. Mr. Radley walked in town at 11:30 every morning and came back promptly at 12, sometimes carrying a brown paper bag that the neighborhood assumed contained the family groceries. I never knew how old Mr. Radley made his living. Jim said he bought cotton, a polite term for doing nothing. But Mr. Radley and his wife had lived there with their two sons as long as anybody could remember. The shutters and doors of the Radley house were closed on Sundays, another thing alien, vocab word, to Maycomb's ways. Closed doors meant illness and cold weather only. Of all days, Sunday was the day for formal afternoon visiting. Ladies wore corsets, men wore coats, children wore shoes. But to climb the Radley front steps and call, hey, 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 of a Sunday afternoon was something their neighbors never did. The Radley house had no screen doors. I once, page 12, asked Atticus if it ever had any. Atticus said yes, but before I was born. So at this point, you are going to go back into your notes. And once again, you are looking to jot down details for Mr. and Mrs. Radley, as well as the Radley place. When you are ready for the second reading, come back and hit play for part 2. So take a few minutes. Make sure you're on it. Charles, hurry up. You're moving too slow. Gianni, let's go. Tracy, let's go. As always, Ruby Woo, I know that you're on it very quickly.